All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order at 5:01. Get a roll call
Chad Scott,
here.
Michelle Dempsey, she's excused. Nancy Bertels,
Here.
Aaron Malone,
Here.
Dorothy Dennison,
Here.
Eric Palin, absent. Susan Hillman,
Here.
Camilla Potts,
Here.
and Sally Pollen.
Here.
And we have a quorum.
All right, would anyone like to approve the agenda?
I move we approve the agenda.
I second.
Got a second? Any commentary, questions, opposition? All right. The agenda is accepted. Mr. Malone, if you help us with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Sure. Stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, any concerns with the minutes of the preceding meeting? Anyone like to accept the minutes?
I'll make a motion to accept the previous minutes as presented.
I'll second that.
Got a second? No opposition? Accepted. Mr. Leslie.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hugh Leslie, Parks Recreation Library Services Manager for the Matsu Borough. Just some things. You have in your packet the staff report for Anne Frank's diary, the graphic adaptation. If you have any questions on that, I'm certainly available to answer those. On your agenda today is that book. We did have two books that weren't picked up by members. We still have them available if anybody would like those. Jillian did not complete her reviews of Haters and Damsel. I believe she's planning on having those for your meeting in April. And then as of yesterday, I believe it was, you have 5 books in the hopper for your consideration at your April meeting. They came in after the agenda was set, so we were not able to provide them to you, but we will have a full docket for you at your next meeting in April.
Okay, so I saw when those updated on the dashboard, they were back in, was it November? Is that just the process they were going through the library or through the librarians that they were being held up, or?
Through the chair, we were waiting for a response from the petitioner, and I believe there was 5 meetings held or 6 meetings held in the last couple weeks.
Okay, I was just curious. I remember looking on there before and I didn't see it. And then when I saw the date on, well, I'm pretty sure they weren't there before. I figured something must have happened. And I'm sure there's a process that delays and things, but
Right, there's
it
some
got straightened
duplicate
out.
submissions in there as well.
Okay. So it's just, how many are 5 you said? Okay. So if we discuss them, if I pull up the dashboard, can we request them or we have to wait till the next meeting?
You can't really take action on a non-agenda item.
Gotcha. Okay. That's fine. Anything else? Okay. All right. Do we have a sign-up sheet for? We have audience participation, 2 minutes per person. First up is Mary Robinson.
Good evening, Mary Robinson, Matsu Borough resident, and I represent myself. So one of the books under consideration is Anne Frank's diary, the graphic adaptation. And at the last meeting I attended, I heard people say that they didn't want to read it because it dealt with transgender. 1, so what? 2, I found trains, I found trams, I found transportation, but I found nothing about transgender in Anne Frank's diary, the graphic adaptation. As the global literary landscape evolves, the struggle against censorship persists. In Russia, a resolute band of writers, publishers, and readers continue to navigate a treacherous terrain reminiscent of Soviet Union suppression. Their efforts to ensure voices, once stifled, find resonance and freedom, a broad echo with a courageous resilience that history will not soon forget. Meanwhile, the United States grapples with its own battles over intellectual freedom, balancing cultural diversity and individual expression in an ongoing dialogue that shapes the future of literary discourse as we see the ugly face of McCarthyism return. As the pages of history churn, the stories of these two nations highlight the internal struggle for the right to read, write, and think freely. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Jackie Goforth.
Thank you, Chairman Scott and members of the Library Citizens Advisory Committee. My name is Jackie Goforth. And it seems that one of the ways to combat people who are challenging is to denigrate their intelligence and their ability to research. Why they would do that, I do not know. Because Anne Frank's diary that you are reading, that is adding sexualization to a historical novel of some relevance. Number one, I have the 1953 encyclopedias, and I looked all through it to find all of those taglines of what they were saying that Anne Frank had put. Labia is not in here anywhere. Number two, I have a manual of sex education from 1953. Nowhere in here does it list the anatomy. I have step-by-step sex education from 1935. It does list vagina and vulva, but all the other terms are not in here. So I don't know how Anne Frank would have had those to go by. And I know she didn't, because what I have right here is a 1952 first edition English translation of Anne Frank's diary. I have the actual book, and I will be more than happy to let you see it, because the entry that is in there that she says she's telling Peter about, that day is missing. It was never in the book. Okay? The other one where they're talking about her parents and about how they don't like each other, that one is not in the book. It's a day that's missing. See, this book has been changed in order to sexualize it and change it for people who read it nowadays. That's the first reason I challenged it. The second reason is this book, the graphic adaptation, is in 17 libraries in the state of Alaska. Only one of them has it in young adults. Juneau, Anchorage, Wasilla, Palmer, Soldotna, all of them have it in adult. Do you know why? Because it's a blasphemy. They have taken a historical novel and sexualized it. But for some reason, Talkeetna has it in young adult, and they will not move it. They will not move it to adult to get it out of children's. It should be in nonfiction, or it should be in fiction. Those entries were never in the original, and I will be more than happy to let you look through this first edition, Anne Frank's diary from 1952.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And Jeannie Trasinski.
Good evening. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. I wanted to speak tonight about Anne Frank's diary. It's interesting. Jackie has her 1953 encyclopedia, probably not the same materials that Anne Frank would have had access to. The European continent is much more progressive than we are and has always been. The first time that I heard her referring to all this, I had a friend that was texting me the etymology of the word labia. And that word began to be used in the 1700s. And that night I went home and I told my husband, this is what Jackie's talking about with Anne Frank. And he started laughing and saying, it's a Latin word. It's been around a lot longer than 1953. So, you know, I know that she wants to present it that this was suddenly just put into this book, but all the research that I did, and I did a lot of research, but of course probably my research doesn't count either, says that this book was the only graphic novel that was approved by the foundation that was set up by Anne Frank's father. And Anne Frank's father, when he had the later editions published of her diary, he wanted these other sections included. They were in the original diary. He wanted them included because he felt like they were important to be included. So they were probably good chance in what I read in high school when I read Anne Frank's diary. But I wasn't looking for the bad. This is what I keep thinking about with all these challenges. You're looking for the bad in the books. I'm looking for the good. And I am not going to zero in on those. I actually had to read the book twice. I've read it twice now to try and find that part because I'm just not obsessed with those things. And I don't believe that young people are either. The book is designed for young people to read, to make the material more accessible. Graphic novels are wildly popular right now. A lot of people don't get pictures in their mind when they read. And so by having pictures presented, it helps them comprehend and get the stories. There's nothing bad in this book. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Sarah Wilton.
Hello, thank you for letting me speak. My name is Sarah Welton, W-E-L-T-O-N. I didn't bring anything to talk about other than the love of reading. I think that when you have these graphic novels, especially for people who have not gotten the bug to read, it is helpful in moving them into it. Any kind of censorship of this particular book seems very ludicrous to me. There's so much that our children and grandchildren, my granddaughter's 14, she read the Diary of Anne Frank 2 years ago. She already knew the information that's in the book because her parents introduced it to her early enough to talk about it at home and use the correct words like a vagina and labia and those things. And I think that that's the issue now is to, we can't parent every single child. Okay, but we can have our books available. And if a parent is upset about it, that's the parent and the child. I believe that we need to push reading of all kinds, whether it's the graphic novels or whether it's listening to the books in audio form, because people have lost interest in so much. We need to be interested. We need to have that. We need to have that curiosity. Because when people don't have curiosity, they become dull and boring. And we need people who have imaginations and creativity. And this book brings that about. And I think that the document that you have with the book here went through all the things about this book and said all the things that were great about the book. And I go along with Ms. Troshinsky that I believe that we should be looking for the good in books. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Linda S.
My name is Linda Spohn. I read the book Anne Frank's Diary when I was a teenager. I cried my tender young heart out for this girl and her family. This was a very dark and sad time in world history. To put this time in history into context, my dad was 15 years old in 1941 when Pearl Harbor was bombed. A young man from my dad's hometown went down on the battleship Arizona. Every eligible young man in my dad's hometown signed up to serve and left. My dad's older brother went right away, and my dad begged his parents to sign for him to go when he turned 16 a few months later. His parents had just sent their oldest son off, so they would not sign. So my dad begged for another year, and when he turned 17 at the top of 1943, they signed. Now I can tell you, if my dad, at 17 years old, can join the Marines, cross an ocean he has never seen, and fight in a world war against Marxism, socialism, and communism, you can bet I will fight against Marxism, socialism, and communism right here in America, infiltrating our libraries, government, and institutions. The book Anne Frank's Diary, the graphic adaptation, is changing history into degeneracy and should be removed from our taxpayer funded libraries. And anyone who wants to get it for their children and read it to them and educate them in those terms can find it elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Karen Lewis.
Good evening, Chairman Scott, everybody else. What's most offensive to me about this book is that they turned Anne Frank into a lesbian, or at least a woman with lesbian thoughts. And that's offensive to me. Now, some people think there's nothing wrong with trans or all of that. I tell you what, I go by what God says. I follow what God says. And that stuff is wrong in his eyes, therefore it's wrong in my eyes. And young children that are so vulnerable to things, if they haven't been raised in the church, for example, and maybe even if they were raised in the church, these things can muddle their minds. It can, which is, I think, the idea. That's the idea of all these books, is to completely twist their little brains. I mean, why can't you have exciting, good novels without rape, murder, fisting, peeing on someone, you know, all these things that are in these books? You know, it's deplorable. It's filthy. It's disgusting. It's unacceptable. And our poor children, our young ones, are being subjected to this garbage, and the librarians are trying to protect it, and the friends of the libraries. They're no friends of children, I'll tell you that. If they were friends of children, they would be protecting from this filth. And it is. And I'm really hacked off that I've come here about 150 times, going to city councils, assemblies, different meetings like this in the last year and a half, and I'm hacked. We need to get it changed. Keep this crap out of the hands of children. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. All right, seeing we have no unfinished business, we'll move ahead to our reconsideration of Anne Frank's diary. Open up for discussion. Before we go over the evaluation criteria, if anyone wants to make any comments, start at the end. Anybody want to share? Or not? It's okay. Any thoughts, comments? Get right to it? Okay. Well, yes.
Are you asking for comments from the panel?
Yeah, if you'd
because
like
I sure do.
commentary before we make our decisions,
Yes.
you're welcome to speak to any of the
Okay.
the content.
I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Okay.
Okay. Alrighty. I have to say, I did more research than I thought I was going to do on this book, because when I started to read it, I thought, wait a minute, this isn't what I read when I first read Anne Frank. Now, I remember reading, now this was back in the 60s, I read in my class in California, I think it was 8th grade, 7th or 8th grade, the play. I read the play. Now, I just recently reviewed the 1959 play, or movie, excuse me, and the play was written in 55. But what I saw in this book was odd. It had excerpts from Anne's diary, but the interpretation of the excerpts were something I hadn't seen in the past. And what I found was the Anne Frank Fond, which is based in Basel, Switzerland, came to Ari Fullman and solicited this book. They wanted to have him write a graphic novel, primarily for fundraising, and it says that right in here. Well, I was continue to read, and I picked up the book on Amazon because I was getting really frustrated with the book. What I was reading was not what I had really thought about Anne writing. And this book is called The Definitive Edition, Anna Frank, Diary of a Young Girl. And in this book, it talks about how her diary has evolved from 1942, published originally in 1947 and banned in certain countries, primarily because it was just after the war. But it had been edited with 2 discovered diaries, separate from her original diary, that were edited, as they say. The first edition was A, which was Anne's diary. The second edition or editing was done with the 2 additional diaries, and the third was when the diaries or the information was returned to Otto Frank, that he had information that he put into this that he thought needed to be told. And then, after Otto Frank's death, there was more information that was from his will that was to go into this that he had. So there's a lot of information, a lot of things written about Anna Frank. And I had to read this alongside this, and no wonder I was getting confused with this, because you can definitely hear Anna's voice in here. And what she describes is actually brilliant. She was a very intelligent, precocious, very well educated, very mature for a 13, 14-year-old. Extremely, I was really impressed, and that's not what I got from the originally reading the movie in the play in 6th and 7th grade. But reading this, I hung on to every word. Now, in this book, now this is the one we're really describing. In this book, there's 2 things I have a problem with. One, I think it's extremely misleading. Yes, it is an adaptation, but I wish they hadn't called it Anna Frank's diary. And the second thing, there are things in here that an adult male has interpreted a 13 and 14-year-old girl's writings and has compiled them into this. I really recommend you read either the original or the definitive, whichever you prefer, because in here is a beautifully told story of a young woman coming of age, and she is so opinionated. But these are opinions, yes, from a young girl, but from a well-educated young girl. Some of them you'll go, well, that's not quite right. Others you'll go, wow, she's right on. But to call this Anna Frank's diary is really a degrading of Anna herself, and I'm really frustrated that the actual foundation approved this. Very misleading, very, very, very misleading, and I don't see. It's funny, it's ironic. The section in here where they have Anne describing the female genitalia. In here, it is beautiful. And she doesn't use technical terms because she didn't have access to, as you said, she didn't have access to medical or technical terms. So she described it as she saw it, if you will, and she embraced her womanhood. In here, they have her, it's misleading that she's gay. It's not. She's looking for a female a girlfriend to confide in and to, as you're growing up, why do girls stick together when they're preteens and teens? Well, there are reasons for that. And they share things. And she was so into wanting a female companion because she didn't feel it with her parents and her mother especially, even her sister. So anyhow, I've said a lot because I just have a beef with this book. I don't know where to put it because in a lot of ways, graphic novels in my mind are for children. And this is a misrepresentation of Anne, and it also is misleading to the reader. So I have a beef with this book. And I guess that's all I have to say right now. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Last call. We'll get to the review scorecard. I have a few thoughts. Someone mentioned the father being adamant about including the description of genitalia. From what I had read, I think someone else mentioned the missing pages. I believe it was the father that initially censored those pages initially, and then later on it was included. Well, yeah, but it wasn't included in some versions of it, and then was included later. And so it was described in what I read that initially it was the father who didn't include that because it wasn't germane to the subject. Yeah, and so and then it re-included it, but in no way did he approve of a graphic depiction of it. And to me, that's where the real issue comes in, not the description or the poetic, whatever, trying to describe, that the genitalia in that term. When it's in print, I think is a completely different thing than when it's in a serialized graphic depiction. So the other thing, obviously, there's a lot to this, but the concept of an adult male interpreting a 13-year-old's sexuality obviously has issues. But probably the most concerning thing that I read that sticks to me, because I'm with you, where my introduction to the story of Anne Frank was exactly the same. The manuscript or the playwright, the play version, which probably wasn't as eloquent or detailed, but it definitely got the main point across of the backdrop and the situation of the danger. So to me, that's the most important aspect. Like everything else, the coming of age and the exploration of sexuality is the least important part of the Anne Frank story. And you could come up with, I think I found 5 other diaries from the same period that would be more appropriate if we're looking at the historical context. Victor Klemper's diaries and David, I can't pronounce it, Syria Kwok's diary, and then 2 others, Ruth Andreas Friedrichs and Yitzhak Rudoveshki's, another teenager whose diary emphasizes the Jewish resistance and cultural survivor rather than the personal confinement. To some, may be better for readers interested in Eastern European Jewish experience. But the point that we're emphasizing Anne Frank's sexuality is the least educational, the least significant, the least important. I agree. Even the graphic novel is a powerful tool to tell the story up and until we depict graphically the female genitalia. And so I think it really misses the mark in that sense, where it could have been something valuable. Probably could say more, but I'll limit my comments. Anyone else have any other comments? We'll get to the review scorecard.
I do have a few things to say.
Sure.
I really love history, and I read this, and especially at the end, the last several pages. The afterword regarding it even tells what day and time Anne Frank probably was burned in the ovens. It told a little bit about the rest of the family members and what they how they ended up. And my whole focus was that this graphic rendition of this historical part of our world could encourage teenagers to read, because it's easy to see pictures, and if kids aren't into reading much, why the comic book form, I think, could encourage them. There are parts of the book that I would not have put in if I had written it. However, I think a lot of it was probably justified by a young girl's curiosity and loneliness and boredom. Kitty, of course, was the name of her diary, and she confided in the diary as a best friend. So I understand the parts that are offensive and could be offensive, but overall, I hope that this graphic rendition adaptation, it's called, would encourage young adults to look into the history of World War II and the Holocaust and the atrocities that happened, and learn from the history from this. Thank you.
May I add to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
The original play and the original movie did enhance, and rightly so, I think, the atrocities of the war. But Anne Frank's diary was, and she told of what they went through. They really didn't know what was going on, and the only thing they had was the people that brought them news and food and that type of thing. But the book itself, the diary, was her blooming as a young woman, and she goes into great detail. Again, this is the book, this is the graphic novel. The book had a lot of that. It also had a lot of the fear that they went through, the starvation they went through. I mean, and I think that's my beef with the book. I would rather have a teenager read this than this. I think that's my bottom line beef. But, I'm with you. I love the movie. I love the play. I mean, I thought that was great. And when I started reading this, I didn't realize how much Anne poured so much emotion and confidence into Kitty, So that's why I put the emphasis on the budding young lady.
Yeah. All right. I think I would agree with that. As far as my main concern being it taking away from the more important themes, but we will go through the evaluation criteria. We'll just go one at a time through the list. Is the material in good condition or appearance?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
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 Is the topic of the material a priority for the collection?
No on that.
I put yes.
I put yes.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I said no.
Yes, graphic novels and historic fiction are both priorities.
I said yes, also from the point of history. I didn't realize that it was the format of the comic book form, but my answer is yes.
I said yes.
Okay. Yeah, I struggle with that one too. I'm actually a little concerned if comic books become a priority for the collection. I think we might be headed that direction, but I guess that's where we're at. Has the material been used frequently by patrons?
It says moderate use in the report.
It said moderate use like 13 times.
Moderate use.
I said no.
Moderate use.
I agree, moderate use.
Yes, it's been moderately used.
Is the material factually accurate?
Well, it takes parts of the book diary. Takes parts of the book, the diary of the little girl, and makes up a story, probably not accurate.
I said it isn't accurate.
I'm sorry, isn't?
I said,
It's not.
Can I ask Nan a question?
Yeah, sure.
Would you say that it is accurate, actually, because you've read both?
Is it inaccurate by omission or is it fabricating? Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Because
yes, no, it's an adaptation, and it is not, it's fiction.
Okay.
you think it's fiction. I put yes, and I still would say yes. But I understand that it's, you're seeing it, that it's leaning the other way. But I put yes.
I understand.
Yeah. Believe it or not, I struggled with that as well, and I settled on yes.
Yes, it was sanctioned by the Anne Frank Foundation and taken from original diary entries.
I said yes, emphatic yes. It depicts the war, what happened with some of the Jews, how they were hidden. It takes it all through their time in being hidden. And then it's factual that they were in concentration camps and burned alive, probably. And I put yes, absolutely. It's a factual, accurate. Not every word, maybe, but yes is my answer.
I was just looking up the word adaptation, and I'd have to say it's fiction because, yes, there are passages in here that are accurate, and no, the conclusions or the depiction is not quite accurate to what I read. So I would say it's fiction.
Yeah, I think they definitely took liberties. Yeah, that's definitely a tough one. All right. Sure.
If I could add again, there have been many fictional stories that have technically been based on historical facts, and that is historical fiction.
Yeah,
So I think that's what
accurate.
this would be
Historical
classified.
fiction, yeah, which isn't necessarily inaccurate, but takes liberties to expound on ideas. You know, when you're dealing with simple, binary yes and no, that's a tough call. So use your best judgment. Has the material been superseded by a new edition or better source?
It's unknown if it's superseded. Yeah, they've had several adaptations of it.
I said yes.
Yes, there's many versions.
Yes.
There's many editions of the original diary, but this is the only graphic adaptation.
Yes, the only graphic adaptation.
No, it has not been superseded because it came from this book.
All right. Is the material relevant to the needs and interests of the community?
No, it's not.
No.
I put yes.
No.
Yes.
I said yes, definitely.
I know this is a hard decision because there are some facts in there, but I'm going to have to say no.
Yeah, if there were no other version of the Anne Frank diary, I think that'd be a tougher call, but, all right. Can the material be easily borrowed from another source?
Yes, it can.
Yes.
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 Does the material have literary, artistic, scientific, political, or educational merit?
No.
This was hard. I changed it from yes to no. But I really do think that has some historic stuff. So I'm going to go back to yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes, I thought the artwork brought a new perspective to the original diary.
Yes.
The only reason I'm going to say yes is because people reading this might decide to read this.
Or not, because they already know the story, right? It could go either way. I totally understand. Okay, so does the material have positive reviews in one or more appropriate professional journals?
Yes, it does.
Yes.
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 Yes, it does.
Does the material have positive reviews from critics, patrons, or staff members?
Yes.
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 Are there sufficient materials available on the same subject?
Yes.
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 I put no because it's the only graphic novel that was sanctioned by the foundation.
Yes.
I'd have to say yes.
Does the material have reputation and or significance of the author, publisher, or producer?
Yes, it does.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes, it's won multiple awards.
I put yes because the author is Anne Frank.
No, the author is
Well, the story,
Ari
the
Fullman.
story, yeah. Okay, it's a rendition, yes, but I think the material has reputation because it's a story of Anne Frank.
Yeah, I'd have to say yes, according to this question. Does the material have reputation and or significance of the author, publisher, or producer? And he has done a lot of work, so.
All right. And for the suitability for minors under 16, answer yes or no. Does the material depict the following actual or simulated conduct? Sexual penetration, the lewd touching of a person's genitals, anus, or female breast, masturbation, bestiality, the lewd exhibition of a person's genitals, anus, or female breast, or sexual masochism or sadism?
Yes, it does.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
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 Would the average individual applying contemporary community standards find that the material taken as a whole appeals to the prurient interest in sex for persons under 16 years of age?
Yes, it does.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
No, I don't believe it does.
I'm really torn between this one. I can't answer on that one, to tell you the truth.
Sure.
I'm in the middle.
All right. Did I skip one? Does the material depict actual or simulated conduct in a way that is patently offensive to the prevailing standards in the adult community as a whole with respect to what is suitable for persons under 16 years of age?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
I said no.
Oh, I thought, okay, yeah.
And because the way it's written, I'm right in the middle.
Sorry, I skipped number 3. Would a reasonable person find that the material taken as a whole lacks serious literary, artistic, educational, political, or scientific value for persons under 16 years of age?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
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 All right. And I think I'll just speak for myself that that caveat is definitely most importantly for the age group 16 and under. I think any graphic depiction of sexual genitalia is concerning. Otherwise, I think it's a totally different ballgame. So suggested disposition: keep the book where it is, reshelve the book to the young adult section, reshelve the book to the adult section, remove the book from the library, or other.
It should be reshelved to the adult section.
Reshelve to the adult section.
I say leave it where it is in the young adult section.
Reshelve to the adult section.
I said keep it where it is in the young adult section.
Reshelve the book to the young adult section. Isn't that where it already is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyways, put a check mark on the second box.
Half of me wants to reshelve it in the adult, and half of me wants to say, get rid of it. I just have a big beef with this book. I am so sorry, but it's beautifully done from a graphic standpoint, but it's just so misleading.
Okay, so you wanted to withhold? It's okay. I mean, your scorecards are going to tell the story.
Yeah, I'm just going to reshelve it to the adult.
Okay. All right. Any thoughts, commentaries? 1 second here. Miss anything?
Sure.
And
I have a
final comments.
I
We'll
was
start
just-
with.
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we review for our next meeting Normal People by Sally Ronde and The Bluest Eyes by Toni Morrison. Could I get a second on that?
We can't make any actions that aren't on the agenda, and so they're going to give us a list for the next meeting. We'll be able to decide at the next meeting what to pick up. So we don't have anything on the agenda that we're able to pick up right now.
Yeah, but I just made a motion to put it on the agenda.
You would have had to list it as new business in your agenda, books for next time, and since it's not on the agenda, you cannot make a motion on something that is not on the agenda.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Now, which book was that again, though?
Normal People by Sally Rooney.
Okay.
And The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. I think it's Morrison. I think that's right.
All right. Any commentary on today's?
I do have a couple comments.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm not a fan of graphic novels. I appreciated the lovely artwork in this piece. For those that have worries that Anne is portrayed as having lesbian tendencies, I would disagree. She's only seeking a girlfriend to share her thoughts with, as any teenager would be apt to do. Yes, it does address her budding romance with Peter, but it also depicts her reasoning for not continuing with the relationship. Overall, it's a good pick for YA youth above 16 who are looking for a new version of Anne's diary. Once again, I'm impressed with the maturity of Anne's writing, and I can see why this was a version approved by the foundation.
Go ahead.
was exactly how I read the book. I didn't think it at all meant that Anne was a lesbian or bisexual or anything. She's a young girl exploring and learning, and I didn't take it that way at all. And I thought it was historically so important that we want young people to read. And if this is what's going to get them going on reading, I would agree with this book staying on the young adult section.
Okay. I'll just say, as far as the actual diary or even the other literary adaptations, I have no issue with any of that. The coming of age stuff seemed very natural to me, very normal, exploratory, and most kids that even have those will work through it pretty naturally. And so to make the assumptions that it turns into all this other things is really a lot of assumption. That being said, I think that the danger of the graphic novel format being so compelling, it seems just unnecessary to have the graphic depictions. It's different in print than it is in comic book form, certainly. And just unnecessary. It just takes away from the broader subjects, the actual content of the discussion and her actual words. Completely fair game. I think a lot of that's appropriate. And I don't think she necessarily would have drawn what was drawn, right? And that wasn't hers. Is kind of the point. She wrote and very eloquently and shared very intelligently, and so I don't consider this her work in that sense. And all the other value of the historical value. Now, if you're to take that out, yeah, you're right. The depictions of everything is incredible, but for the same reason, that's why I had to, for the 16 and younger, certainly make that determination. All right. Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a couple more things to say. As I said, I really appreciated the historical value of this book, and where it even, I was looking forward here toward the end, where the attack was, or the attempted assassination on Hitler, that was included. And so, again, I just love the history of it and want young people to understand the Holocaust, to understand our world history. And so, how she was depicted, I think, was really probably very authentic. And I did enjoy the book. I must say I did.
All right.
And may I just interject again?
Absolutely.
I agree. I think young people really do need to understand it, the history of war, basically, bottom line. But World War II is our. I'm excluding Vietnam, not to diminish it, but to just emphasize World War II was a world war, and it affected the entire globe. And to learn the history is extremely important. In the graphic novel, there are just smittens of it in here, and there's smittens of Anne. Again, when I was a kid, the only graphic novels, if you will, were comic books. And those were the comic books that the kids who, it was looked upon as the kids that wanted to just forego literature and just read comics books. Now, this is when I was growing up. And so, but I read comic books because I liked the pictures, but I read more classical comic books like Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse and all that fun stuff. Anyhow, but the point is, I hope I remember it, is we didn't get a chance to learn things in graphic novels. That was, you didn't learn about it. You were enjoying. It was for pleasure. There were very, very few graphic novels that were not fiction or not historical fiction or anything like that. We had to read the books. Now, I didn't read this book until we were signed this because I wanted to compare it. But we read is what I'm getting at. And I understand there is a situation where we do really want children and adults to read and to read history, to read beautiful literature and that type of thing. Sometimes the graphic novels, as you said, do not quite depict what was written or as eloquently. And there are some wonderful passages in this book, but there are even more more eloquent passages in what the whole text that Anne wrote is what I'm getting at. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
Go ahead.
And that's a couple of comments that I read in some reviews that people said, it's kind of a shame that we're going to graphic novels and simplifying things, but it's the times, if we want our kids to start reading history, if we want them to be involved enough to read something, we kind of have to go to this. And it's sad, we shouldn't, but it's the reality of things overall in general. And so I think the book has value to have it in our libraries.
Okay, I'll make one more comment. I think it narrowly could, like every book that we've reviewed, I think they deal with important subjects, do great jobs capturing attention and bringing attention to subjects, and then just tragically miss the mark in very small ways, which I think are inappropriate and sad. And I think the community does have a right to have a standard and a line. And that's what's being argued right now is there a line? Does the community have a right to draw a line of what we want taxpayer funding to support, not what's free to read in public and have in private collections, but do we have the right to restrict content just for the community's value? And to me, I think it does miss the mark, and it could have been much better and could have been amazing, and it just missed the mark. So anyone else before we close?
So Hugh, are we going to be able to see those two books on the agenda for next week or next month rather?
Through the chair to Mr. Malone, we will have them as part of your agenda. If we get any more between now and then, we will include those as well.
Okay. So yeah, I wasn't super clear about that, but those five, the normal people in blue eyes are on that list.
Yeah, I believe
Okay.
so.
When it said it went to reconsideration committee, I wasn't sure if that. Okay. So I think we're on the same page. So they'll all be available for us to discuss and pick up.
Yeah, through the to the chair. We currently have 5. If there are more meetings between the librarians and patrons, for example, prior to the cutoff for your agenda, we will include any and all of those.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. We will close the meeting, adjourn at 6:00. Thank you everyone for coming and your time and efforts. Appreciate you guys.
Just in an hour. 1 hour. I figured it would be short.